Hey y'all, welcome to the Farmer's Table. My name is Jess. I'm so glad you have tuned into my channel here today, where I am in my kitchen extremely excited for the recipe that I'm about to make. I have picked these lovely eggplants from my garden this morning, and I am going to be making something I have been thinking about since the freeze came last fall and killed the eggplants last year. I'm going to be making some baba ganoush, which is an amazing eggplant dip. The video today is part of a collaboration hosted by my friend Chrissy over at 9 Little Aussies. She has been here on the Farmer's Table channel before, as well as on Roots and Refuge. Her and her family moved from Australia to Texas a little over a year ago. We met, became fast friends, and she is celebrating her 100th video on YouTube by hosting this collaboration. I'll put a link to the playlist down below in the show notes. There are several channels participating, all sharing garden to table recipes. And of course, I had to throw in my baba ganoush recipe on this because I've been talking this up, so the pressure's on for this to be good. So we'll jump right into this. I have my oven preheated to 375 degrees. I am making quite a bit of baba ganoush today. Now normally throughout the summer, as the eggplants are getting ripe, I will just make one eggplant's worth at a time. I'll eat on it for a couple of days and then I'll just make more as I need it. Today I'm actually making a little bit more than usual because I know Maya will want to eat some. I would tend to eat the same things over and over every day for the entirety of the growing season. Everybody else just gets excited about it when it's new and sort of tapers off and goes back to their old favorite. Now, previously, I've tried baba ganoush a lot of different ways. I had it for the first time, I don't know, 15 years ago. There was a restaurant we used to go to that served it, and that's what put it on my radar. But since then, I have tried lots of different ways of making it. And now I kind of have a method that I sort of go with every time. The first thing I do is I'm going to roast my eggplants. I like to leave them whole and uncut. I put them on a baking sheet and I'm going to put them in the 375 degree oven. The reason I don't like cutting these is that they're going to have a lot of moisture in them after they cook. Some of it will still probably run out even with them being whole, but if you cut them, a lot of that moisture runs out, and I just don't feel like you get as nice of a texture in your end dip. So these are going in the oven. Probably take about 40 minutes or so. I'm just going to keep an eye on it, and once they're nice and shriveled and soft, I'll pull them out. I'll let you know how long it takes. Alright, I'm back in the kitchen. My eggplants are cooked and cool enough to touch. This took about 45 minutes. These are, I would say, medium eggplants. They're not super large, but also not small. When these came out of the oven, they did not look this collapsed. They were still kind of plump looking, but I just squeezed them and could tell that they were nice and soft. Pulled them out, and as they've cooled, they've sort of collapsed. I'm going to set those aside. You don't have to wait for them to be cool enough to safely handle. Have I made batches of baba ganoush before where I burnt my fingers because I simply could not wait? Yes, I have, but obviously this is the ideal situation. I was out watering the garden. I've got a bowl here that I'm going to mix this in. I often do this in my food processor. If I do it in my food processor, I process the garlic with a tahini and lemon juice first and let that get good and blended into something of a paste, and then add the eggplant in. If you are using a larger and older eggplant, the food processor can really help because eggplants can get a little fibrous in parts when they're a little bit older, and that's going to help it break it down. If you don't have one, you can take some scissors to it to cut up any fibrous bits. I think these are young enough that it's not going to be an issue. Baba ganoush is served in a variety of different textures. It's all more or less the same ingredients. You have eggplant, you have tahini, which is sesame paste, lemon juice, garlic, olive oil, salt, and paprika is optional. Some people put a couple other things in it, but that is kind of the most basic agreed upon ingredients list. However, some places will serve it very, very smooth, whereas some places or recipes make it more chunky and rustic. I like both because it's really the flavor I like, so that's going to come down to preference. But today I decided to do this without any extra equipment, so if you don't have a food processor, you can follow along. The first thing I'm going to do is crush about 6 garlic cloves into a bowl. If you don't want to do 3 big eggplants or medium eggplants, you could cut this in half. Also, if you are not crazy about tons of garlic, you can go lighter on this. I eat garlic like vampires are a real threat. I love garlic, and I'm always going to do more than what a recipe calls for. So I am putting about 6 cloves in. I'm using a garlic press here. You could just chop this up, or as I said, use the food processor. If you have a mortar and pestle, you could just crush the garlic in that, just whatever you want to do, so that you don't have any really big chunks. Oh, this is tahini. This is a key component in making baba ganoush. Most brands of this will separate, kind of like natural peanut butters, and so you've got to mix them back together so that the oil is back with the paste. It took me a really long time to start this channel. It was much requested from the 6 years of making gardening content on YouTube, where people asked for recipes and cooking, and I had a lot of issue with it. And what really delayed me was that I don't measure anything. And so I feel like on every video I make, I'm like, I don't typically measure this. That's because I don't really usually measure anything unless I'm following like a baking recipe where like the science matters. The thing I'd like for you to take from that, I hope it's not frustrating. I do my best to like write down roundabout measurements. But like, make a recipe a couple of times and tweak it before you decide how you like it. I always start on the lower end of things and then taste it and then add more. I am going to put about 1/3 of a cup of this tahini in with this amount of eggplant. How do I decide that? I don't know. It's just roundabout the amount that feels right. When I cook things, they don't always turn out exactly the same every time. They're always good, and I can taste them and make them how I want it to be. And I realize it's an issue if you like never have had baba ganoush. You don't know if you like it, and then you make it, you don't know what it should be like. But I'm gonna say for this much eggplant, about 1/3 of a cup, but I think they would probably taste good with 1/4 cup, and it would probably taste good with 1/2 cup. So it's fine either way. I'm gonna add the juice of 1 lemon, and I'm just mixing this in and mashing this down to make sure it's fully incorporated. And now I'm going to scoop the insides out. So I want you to see here, the inside of this eggplant has quite a lot of seeds in it. If this texture is really going to bother you, harvest your eggplants really young, or try to purchase eggplants that have been harvested young before they develop many seeds. I do that sometimes. I'll have to go through more eggplants to make the baba ganoush. I'll get a smoother texture, but it doesn't really bother me for there to be seeds in. If it does bother you, you may want to, you know, look at maybe doing it in the food processor. But I'm going to just scoop the guts out of this eggplant directly into my bowl. If any of the bits of skin break off, that's fine. I'm just going to scrape them off and pull them out. And I'm going to proceed to do this with all 3 eggplants. All right, I've got a little chopper masher thing. I'm just going to use this. Make sure I get this good and mixed. Now I'm going to put a pretty good bit of salt in here, at least a couple teaspoons. I use Celtic sea salt, which is not as salty. If you're just using plain iodized salt, definitely start out a little lower and then taste it and work your way up. I actually feel like this needs a little bit more tahini, so when I write the recipe down, I'm going to just write it down as 1/2 cup to this much eggplant. The tahini is what gives this more of a substantial kind of depth of flavor. I think it was just a touch lacking. Now, to finish this, I drizzle olive oil on top. Sometimes whenever I go to eat it, you know, I'll pull this out of the fridge, I will put even more olive oil on it. And then I also like sprinkled paprika on top because I love paprika because it's so smoky and just adds a nice flavor. Another really great finish for this is toasted pine nuts, or any toasted nuts. You can eat this a lot like hummus, with like pita breads, or with sliced up veggies. Right now the cucumbers are coming in a lot, and so eating it with sliced up cucumbers is kind of a go-to for me. But my most favorite way to eat baba ganoush is with homemade corn tortillas. So we're gonna make a couple of those real quick too, because I've been waiting for this since like November. Behind me I've got a little bit of lard melting in a cast iron skillet over medium heat, and here I've got my masa harina flour. This is my favorite flour for making tortillas. And this is white corn, and it's treated with lime, and so it's got a little bit of that flavor in it. Again, I don't really measure. I'm just putting some of this flour in a bowl. The kettle is never cool at our house. I've raised a bunch of tea drinkers. We all drink hot tea year round throughout the day. And so I just heat the kettle back up because you want to mix this with hot water. I'm just going to put a little bit in and mix it. I usually let this sit for, you know, until I'm able to handle it, because that water was really hot. It only takes like a minute or something for it to cool down. Tortilla press. My viewers had pity on me last year because I was pressing my tortillas between baggies, between my counter and a cutting board. I mean, I was just being resourceful. This is a heck of a lot easier, and this is not a huge investment. It's worth it to get one if you think you may do this very much. So right here I have, these are just 2 halves of a Ziploc bag. I just wash this and reuse it, and I keep it with the tortilla press. It makes it a lot easier to get it off where it doesn't get stuck to it. I'm gonna grab a ball of this. It is kind of hot. Put it here and baggie on the top and press. I actually like my tortillas a little bit thicker. I mean, I'm not looking to get them super thin. This is thin enough. This is a very fast process. It does not take very long at all, so definitely don't walk away from it. Flip it over. All right, just pulled this off. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt on it. Okay, I'm actually gonna make more of these. Maya and the kids will have some, but I figured I would do a little taste test for you guys, and I'll wrap the video up. Got my baba ganoush. This lasts in the fridge for, you know, as long as you would expect fresh ingredients like this to last in the fridge. I've never had it last without me eating it for more than a week. It always runs out, so I've never had it spoil. I like to let my tortilla get a little crispy and then just dip it. It's hot, and I definitely should probably wait, but it's so good. I'm so happy to have my baba ganoush. I hope you guys like this. I'm gonna dive in. Thank you for hanging out with me today. If you have anything special you love to do with baba ganoush, or if you have a similar recipe that you would like to share with me, I'd love to hear it. And if you do decide to give this a try, let me know what you think. Thanks for hanging out with me. I bless you. Until next time.